Welcome, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us. My name is Lori Rubin, and I'm here with Nikon Ambassador Robin Preston. Robin's a professional photographer. He's just absolutely amazing. You're going to be blown away by his images, and we're so excited to have him join us today. So I'm going to go ahead and let Robin take over and get ready for some stunning images and some really nice and fun learning experience here. So, Robin, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, thanks very much, Laurie, and it's nice talking to you again. Okay, maybe let me greet everybody in America, I believe in Australia and UK. So I'm a London-based photographer, but I work internationally. And just a little history of me, and I'm actually a car photographer. But photography is my passion, as I think it was written in the script about me. So I've got a partner, we work together. At the end of the day, when we're doing a job, he'll go home, paint his house. I'll go out on the streets and start photographing people, or I've got to create images all the time. I've got an agent in Paris who says that you're just a machine that's spitting images out every day, but it's just a passion of mine. So I actually come from illustration, so I studied illustration but was always doing photography, and I never started work. I got a diploma in illustration but never started work as an illustrator. I went straight into photography. So I'm an advertising photographer, so I work for advertising agencies worldwide, as I said, on cars, but also on other products, also lifestyle photography. So what I thought I'd do is I talked to Laurie about it, and I'd just show you maybe 3 images of the sort of work I do, so you've got that feeling. And I also come from the analog world, so the way I work with MacPhun is as I would have done in a darkroom analog. So I'm just going to show you digital methods but working analog. So I always say think analog, work digitally. So for those of you who've never worked analog, I think you still understand what I'm talking about. I've got some images to start with from Magnum, from a couple of friends of mine who've allowed me to use their images to show you that image manipulation isn't something new. This has been going on since photography began around the 1840s. Okay, so this is a job I did for a company called Cleveland Motorcycle Works in Cleveland. That's where they are, but this is shot in New York. And we didn't have, let's just click that away. At the time, we didn't have these motorbikes ready, so I was waiting for the guy who customized them to get them ready. So in fact, this was my original shot, so the motorbike wasn't there at all. Created shadows for where the motorbike would be standing, and then dropped the motorbike in. And I shot it very late afternoon to get this. I knew it had to be lit in a certain way, but I shot it late afternoon to get this effect. So if I actually disable my mask, then we can see this was the actual shot. So I made a mask, and you can see this warmth that I've got here is actually from the sun. I haven't done it in Photoshop. So we use Photoshop, but we only use it sparingly. We try to shoot everything at the correct light and the correct balance, so that we just have to put them together and just do a light correction. Okay, so that was the job I did for Cleveland Motorcycle Works. This is a job I did for Mercedes, and those of you from America will know that it's actually LA, the background. This is a tuner in Germany. I live half the time I live in England, but I spend a lot of time in Germany working for German car manufacturers. This is a tuner for Mercedes in Germany. So I knew what I wanted to do, and I wasn't worried about the background. So I actually shot the car, and let's do the proper shot. Okay. So this is how I shot the car. I wasn't worried about the background. So you can see that basically it's the exposure is a little bit too high, but I was looking at the car and not what was going on around it, because I knew I was going to separate it from the background afterwards. So then I dropped it into the background and used a filter from MacPhun to get this sort of yellowy effect, which I quite liked. And then started dropping rain in. That's a complete different workshop. And just put a bit of shadow in just to make it sit in the background. So that's the sort of work I do. You can see I haven't got thousands of layers. We only use a certain amount of layers because as we've shot the background and the car properly in the first place, then we don't need all these layer modes and different layers to work on our images. Okay, so this is just, I'll just show you quickly. We won't go through the layers and everything. So I do a classic car calendar every year for Mercedes. And in reality, this was the background. The car wasn't there. So I used, again, a MacPhun, just slightly made my own filter within the software just to give it a little bit of a different look, and then drop the car in. So if you're looking at image manipulation, the way a professional does it is they make it look as if it's actually there. So you shouldn't be able to see that I've put this image together. Okay, I'm trying to stop to go into my London accent because sometimes maybe it's difficult to understand me. Okay, so let's go into the reason why I use MacPhun. And on these images, I wanted to show you 3 images so that I could show you the way I use MacPhun. So as I said, image manipulation is nothing new. The gurus would like you to believe that they invented it and it's only been going on since computers, which is rubbish. I was making also combinations, transparencies before computers. So I was putting images together in the 70s. Okay, so this is shot with James Dean, shot by Kevin Stock, who's unfortunately now not with us, a Magnum photographer. And his widows allowed me to use these images, so I haven't pulled them down from the internet. I've actually got permission to use these images. So what would happen is Kevin shot this shot, and obviously he had to shoot it quickly because James Dean was walking down the road, so he used an exposure, sort of middle exposure, where he knew it wouldn't be the exposure wouldn't be too high or too low, so he could pull some stuff out of the image. In digital now, which I'll show you, it's much easier than it used to be. Okay, so this is the proof that the black and white printer went through with him and said, okay, +2 stops, minus a fifth of a stop. So these are all the different areas which they would have lightened or darkened to get the image at the end. And this was the final image. So you can see he's pulled out everything here in the background because here it was obviously blown out. So and those are the sort of things I'm going to show you in MacPhun, because I think a lot of people, there's enough people showing you with this preset you can do this, and with this preset you can do that. And I want to show you how I work with it. And I try to shoot every image perfectly. I work manually. I don't use any automatic aperture or anything. So I expose manually. I use obviously autofocus. Why not use something which helps you in photography? So I use autofocus, but I set my aperture and my speed manually. Okay, so this just to show you black and white, because we're going to go into tonality. And here is a very famous image from Thomas. And these were the corrections that Thomas went through with the black and white printer from MacPhun in New York. And this is the image that came out. So obviously he was dodging and burning until they came to this image. It's a pity because these guys that were such professionals and such artists, you almost got nobody anymore who can do this sort of work. So it's time for us to work on our images like this. So we'll start immediately. So we said from London to Vegas, but we'll be swapping backwards and forwards. London, Vegas, Vegas, London. I've got lots of images for you, so I might just pull an image out and say, okay, let's work on this one. So for everybody in America and for some of you in England, this is King's Cross Station in London. As you see, I've done nothing to the image. The only thing I've done is said, okay, I want a little bit more clarity. That's because I used it in a different way before. But with MacPhun, I could also do clarity. But I'm just going to use it and leave it as it is and open the image. And then say, excuse me, I'm going to go into MacPhun and I'm going to go into tonality. And the image is okay. I mean, basically you'd say, most people would say, oh, it's a nice image. But we're just going to work on it just a couple of minutes just to pep the image up a little bit. No? So what we can do is we can go into now basic. So I could say, okay, I'm going to do architecture or street to give a little bit of urban, but I'm just going to stay in basic. And I'm just going to say, in this case, boost clarity. The reason why I'm now saying boost clarity is because MacPhun works in a completely different way. I don't know what the guys have done with their algorithms, but if you go too far with clarity in Lightroom or in Bridge in Photoshop, you get some weird things going on, but somehow the guys at MacPhun have been able to create the effect that I want without it breaking up. Okay, so we can see I've changed the image, so we've got before and afterwards. And because I've given it more clarity, it's now become a little bit too dark here, and for me, slightly too dark here. So what I'm going to do is just go into the shadows and just open up the shadows slightly. So you can see these images, although we thought it was perfect at the beginning, it's now starting to become a little flat. Whereas this image here, we've got a really nice graphic feel to it. A lot of my clients work with me because they like my graphic touch to the photographs that I'm making. So, okay, so that's fine with tone. So we can look down here. What are we going to do next? Well, I'm going to go into vignette because this is slightly uninteresting that's going on here. I want to just bring a little bit more focus onto these guys here. So I'll just go in and say, okay, I want to create a slight vignette, but you can see they're starting to get dark. But I can go back again and start working on something else. So I might want to feather that a little bit because it's, for me, it's just a little bit hard. Okay, so I'll say that's fine, and I'll actually go back now to my tone and say I want to open up the shadows even more. So just so that I open up the shadows again. So I'm coming towards this tone that I had. You can see he's open, more open a little bit more. I can still go in and say, okay, I'd like to add more structure. So I just can give that a bit more structure. So for me, the image is ready. I don't need to do anything else. So you can see, I don't know what that was, 1.5 minutes. We've taken this image and we've created this image. So immediately we've created an image that's got much more dynamic to it. Okay, I'll click that away and open up the next image. And you'll notice that I'm working on real images. So I'm not working, although this is a JPEG, this is a JPEG when it's opened that's quite a large size. So let's go, we'll stay in tonality and let's see what we're going to go after next. Let's go to George. This is a friend of mine who's always at Viva Las Vegas, and because of the sunlight in Nevada, because you've got this very strong sun, sometimes it's difficult to shoot just immediately. So what I try and do is just have a middle of the range exposure that I can work on afterwards. So I've got sky in here, the clouds aren't breaking out, I've still got tone in the wide areas of the image, but here it's looking a bit soft. So I'll just keep one aperture, maybe 8, and then a certain speed. So obviously with this sun it could be 600s. And then just shoot as I'm going along, because I know I can work on it digitally afterwards. So you see here, again, nothing. There's nothing here. I've changed nothing. This is one shot. And most people would say, that's great, great shot, good, ready. But I don't say that because I want to enhance my image. I don't want to manipulate it, I want to enhance it. So I'll go into Tonality Pro again. Load the image. And now we'll look for a preset. Maybe we won't use a preset. If I then say again, I like this clarity look, I want more going on in the structure and the tarmac, I want more structure going on in here. If I use boost clarity, you'll see if I just use this preset, he gets this really light edge around him. Now this for me doesn't look good. I want to keep the image natural. So I could go through here and I could say, okay, what does that look like? Here, again, I've got a preset and it's now burning out my sky. So what does this tell me? It tells me I'm not going to use a preset at all. So I'm just going to go into user. These are presets I've used myself for something else, but as I said, I'm not going to use a preset. So let's just go to reset. Okay. So I'm just going to use my tools that I've got here that are available to me, and I might save this as a preset afterwards for something I want to use again. So what I'm going to do now is say, okay, I'll probably take my exposure down slightly, but minimal. And then I'll start working on different things. So I might say, okay, I'm going to take the highlights down. And you notice already my clouds in the background are coming more to the fore. the mountains in the background are coming more to the fore. So I'm starting to get the sort of exposure that I want. But I want to make a dynamic image out of this. So what I'll do is I'll open up the shadows slightly. So because we've got this harsh sun in Nevada. And then I'll go into clarity and structure. Again, you'll see what happens. If I go too far with clarity, we get this halo around this head. It's not good. So I'm going to leave clarity out of it, but I'm actually going to say I want to use structure. So I'm just going to boost the structure up. So his hair, the grease in his hair becomes, or pomade becomes much shinier. So if I just move over a little bit more, so he's got much shinier hair, we're getting more tone into his face. With a man, it's no problem. We obviously don't do this with ladies because they wouldn't be very happy about it. And we've got more tone in his t-shirt. You can see some of his hair is actually now appearing on his t-shirt, and the asphalt starts becoming more graphic. So this image becomes much more graphic. And the image is ready, sorry. The image is ready. That's it. You can see how easy it is to work with MacPhun. Okay, so let's click that image away. We won't be saving that. And let's take another image. Are we going to take this one, or should we take something? I've got lots of images, so let's take this image, and then we'll work on the other image as a last image. So just going to open up this image. Again, I've only opened up the shadows because it's Nevada. You've got to open up the shadows because you're always going to get very dark shadows because of the intensity of the sun. The rest, I've done nothing. Okay, so just open up the image. Again, we'll go into MacPhun, Tonality Pro. And I'll go straight into before and after. Okay, and let's have a look at some presets. So maybe we'll look at some street, a little bit of urban presets. And what I want to do is have structure in this car. So we can have a look and say, okay, city life. And immediately this car's come alive. So this whole image has come alive. Unfortunately, it's also come alive here, so it's starting to burn out, which I don't want. So we could go further and look at imaginative names they always have for this software. And in fact, I probably can't find a preset for this. So if I go to grunge, it's burning out too much. So again, we can look at old school, but that's given me a bit of a weird image. I probably look at basic and we go to more details. So that's much better. We can see through more details that I've actually got more structure in the door and everything. This is burning out, but this is what I wanted. When I was in Vegas last year for Viva Las Vegas, I shot everything in black and white, and I wanted to have this 40s, 50s camera look. So I wasn't worried about blown out highlights because I wanted to have that sort of effect. So again, maybe because of the 50s and because the lenses weren't as good as they are now, you would have had some fallout. So I might just add a slight vignette to that. Ready. Again, very quickly, done and dusted. Okay, let's go on to this image. This is an interesting image because, again, I shot this in black and white, in the camera, as a JPEG, in black and white. So I didn't shoot it in RAW and then transferred to black and white. I actually shot it in black and white with a Nikon V2, which is a small mirrorless camera from Nikon. Okay, and again you see, apart from very small change in the exposure, I haven't touched this at all. So we'll open the image again. So we've got an image we're working on which is 40 megs. Go in tonality again. Okay, so let's look at presets. So we've got basic presets. We can look at adaptive exposure, auto improve, a nice effect where let's do before and after. So we're starting to get a little bit of something going on in the sky. We can do boost clarity and different things, but because we haven't got much time this evening, I know that more details is going to work because I want to give an effect I call liquid metal. So the metal almost looks as if it's aluminium, so it becomes very, very shiny. So I'm going to say more details, and immediately we can see the dramatic change we've got here. Now, that's okay, the preset, but again, I want to enhance it. So again, I've told you this is the fifth time I'm telling you, I'm going to open the shadows slightly because I don't want this to be completely black. I want this to be a little bit open. But you see, I'm not working with masks or anything. I'm just working on the image as it is. And then I'm going to go into clarity and structure. And this time, I'm going to work in structure and just boost the structure and also the micro structure. And go back to tone, and I might want to take down my highlights, and we see immediately what's happening if we look at the sky. It's amazing what digitally is in an image. So the people that tell you, I know film is pure, film does not have this contrast that digital's got. 6 years ago, 7 years ago, I would agree with you, but now the whole digital world is so far that you've got fantastic stuff going on in your files. So again, we see we've come from this to this, and I'm talking all the time, so this is probably about 1 minute. I only ever give myself 3 minutes to develop my images. So that's fine, but now I want to show you also something that's interesting. We might want to give it a slight vignette. So we'll just drop that in. And then what I'd like to do, let me just go back up, is I might want to use another preset and make a new layer, but I'm not going to do it in this case. I'm going to say I want to use texture overlay. So what is a texture overlay? Texture overlay is a texture that we can actually lay over the image to give it a look as if it's old paper, that it's been weathered or anything. But me being me, I'm not going to use any of the textures which MacPhun have supplied. I'm going to use my own texture. So I'm going to use my own texture, and I'm going to say, okay, I'll go into my layers, into my hard disk, and I'm going to look for a layer. So it would have been better actually if I'd have, let me just do this quicker, because otherwise we are not going to be able to do it in time. Just cancel that. So what I'll do is I'll just lay my layer on the desktop. So I'm going to take this layer and I'll just copy that to the desktop so that I can choose that. And we'll go back into Tonality Pro. Oh, very interesting what's going on here. So it's obviously, it wasn't good that I went out. Okay, so we're back where we were. And I'm going to select texture. Okay, I'm going to load custom. And I'm actually going to go into my desktop because I know it's there. I'm going to load this texture. Okay. So if I use the complete amount, we can see it's become much too light. So this isn't looking good. So what I'm going to do is the same as I would in Photoshop. I've got some different things going on. I can multiply. I can use screen, soft light, or overlay. In this case, I'm going to use multiply. Just take that back a little bit. And I just want it to sort of give the effect scratch and a bit of blood. So just go back to the 40s or 50s when the mafia was in Vegas and just give that sort of effect. So you can see very quickly, we can change the image very quickly. So we can add our own textures. So just as a tip from me, you can see I've got, this is an old Polaroid that I use as a frame. Wherever I go, whether it's with an iPhone or a smaller camera, or if it's with a bigger camera, I'm always shooting textures. So if you walk down the street and you look around, you always find different textures you can use. iPhone or whatever your phone is, small camera, shoot the texture, and then later then you can actually load that into MacPhun. You can make a folder with your textures, and then you can use all these textures on different images. Okay, so that's my little trip into tonality, because we want to go into intensify. And for intensify, I'm going to use this image. I'll just click my other image away. I hope I'm going to use this image. Okay, so me being me, coming from London, arriving Tuesday evening in Vegas, getting up very early because I couldn't sleep, and I went out in front of the hotel, and some of the guys from the Roadman Car Club had arrived also on the same day. So I just started taking images. I mean, not brilliant images, just for something to do. And I just want to show you on this image how you can change this very quickly, but not go over the top. So I really love these trucks and cars which have got this rust, and just got to take a drink of water. I've got this rust on them, but they've also got a coat of clear paint just to protect them. So I'm just going to use this image to show you how creatively you can actually work with Intensify Pro and what the MacPhun boys have built into it. So I've become a beta tester with MacPhun now, and we are working on different things which will be coming out pretty soon, which will be exciting. So I'm actually going to work with a preset because we don't want to keep away from the presets. I'm used to doing all this sort of thing, so mostly I make my own presets, but we can use presets within here. And I'm going to go into creative because most of my work is creative, and look at dramatic one. So this gives a sort of a grungy effect, a modern effect. We don't actually work like this anymore in advertising. These effects are used more for movie posters and different things like that, or for TV shows when they're advertising them. So the advertising industry in Europe has gone back more to more color and more photographic. Okay, so this is dramatic 1, which is okay. Little bit over the top. Dramatic 2, which is not really enough. And dramatic 3, which is far too much, because I want to keep this as a photo. I don't want this to be become an illustration. We're photographers, we're not illustrators. So I'm going to go back to dramatic 2, and I'm going to say, okay, I like dramatic, dramatic 1. I like dramatic 1, but it's still a little bit too much for me, so I'm just going to take that back to about 80%. And then I only want to use it on the truck. I don't want to use it on the rest of the buildings or the other cars or the sky, because I want those to still stay natural. So what are we going to do? Well, we're going to take a brush, and I'm just going to turn my tablet on, because in this case I'm going to use a tablet. But for those of you who don't work with a tablet or haven't got a tablet, it doesn't matter, because you can also do this with a mouse. It's just with a tablet I can actually make my brush larger or smaller. So for those of you who've got a Wacom tablet, MacPhun is also has talked to Wacom, and they build in the Wacom brush presets and everything into the software too. So I can actually just, without having to go up here to change the size of my brush, I can just do it quickly with my pen. So what I'm just going to do is I'm going to go in and brush the effect I want just on the truck. And because in the middle it's brushing 100%, and on the edge it's brushing 0%, I don't go over the edge here. So I'm just here, I know I need to stay by 0%. So very quickly I've done the truck. Now I like a bit more structure in the tarmac, so I'm just going to brush that in quickly. So already I think, great, like it, but I'm going to go into adjust and say, okay, I like the image, I like it as it is, but I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a new layer, and I'm going to use my gradient mask tool. I'm just going to bring that down a little bit. Now I've done this on a different layer because I don't want to affect what's going on here. I can actually see what my mask looks like if I'll show you after I've done this bit. So that's fine. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to take the exposure down a bit so we can see that we've got this gradient, and I'm going to make it bluer. If we've got a blue sky, it's obvious that the on the bonnet and on the roof that a car will look slightly bluer. So I'm just going to give that a slight blue tone, and I'm going to say, okay, that's fine. I like that. So I've got my gradient on another layer, and I've got my mask here that I've brushed to get this effect on the truck. If I want to see my mask, I can actually show it. So that's fine, and that's another image finished. You see how easy and intuitive it is to work with this software. So again, I'm going to click that away, and I'm going to stop working with my tablet for a minute and show you exactly the same preset but working with it in a different way. So again, you see what I do is I'm working on images using the same techniques all the time, which makes me get faster and faster and faster. So this is a friend of mine, Bruce Willis, look-alike. He's German. He also assists me in photography when I'm in Vegas. So he travels every year to Vegas with me. Again, I've just opened up the shadow slightly, and I'll just say open image, and again, anybody normal would say, okay, great shot. Well, maybe they might not say it's a great shot, but the shot's been shot correctly. Just for interest, the way I shot this was I had a reflector in the open door, so I was reflecting the sun into the cabin, and then I had a remote flash in front of the windscreen just to flash him slightly to make sure that he was open so we weren't getting too many shadows going on. So again, we'll go into Intensify Pro. I'm just checking the time all the time so that I can keep up. We'll go straight into before and after. And I'll go into presets. And I'll use dramatic again. I'll say, okay, dramatic 1, what does it look like? Over the top. This is much, much too far. It's just, it doesn't look right. I know people like this, but this is not a photograph. It's almost an illustration. If I go into dramatic 2, now it starts becoming a photograph. And because he's a guy, it doesn't matter. This is what we like. We like to bring out the pores and the skin and everything to give this manly effect and stuff. So what it's now done is, which for 8 years ago in the advertising industry, this was a modern look. I used to call it frost. We've been creating this look for about the last 20 years. But for me now, especially for my clients I work for, there's not enough color in this. So I'll go back into adjust again. And I'll just say, I'd like some more vibrance in this image. So I'll just pop back a little bit more color into there. Okay. So we've got a bit more color back into it, and he doesn't look dead. If he's got gray skin, he's a zombie. It doesn't matter what anybody says to me, he's a zombie. So, and again, I'd like to create a new layer, because what's going on here I want to keep, but it's not that interesting. He's much more interesting. Again, I'm going to open up the shadows so we can see that's what's going on here, because we're losing him here. So we're just going to open up the shadows. And you've guessed it, I'm going to use a gradient tool, because I just want to darken down that area above him. Not too far, but just take it down a bit so he's the main part of the image and not this roof. I might pull that down a little bit because I can see what I'm doing. I don't want to darken down this hat. And I'll say again, okay, we'll apply that. So the image is finished. So again, within 2 or 3 minutes, we've gone from this, which is correctly exposed picture, which most people would say, oh great, apart from it could be a bit more openly in the shadows, but we've gone to this, a modern look, but we haven't gone over the top, because we must not go over the top. It must remain a photograph. Okay, we'll click him back, and we'll go to the next image. Let's do a simple image now. Let's just go back to London. So I took this shot with with a Nikon V3 for you Nikonians out there, which is the newer version of the mirrorless camera, the one camera from Nikon. So that's it. I'm not here to do advertising for Nikon. Now I want to show you something which is, for me, fantastic within Intensify Pro, We're going to do it 10 seconds enhancement. So we'll just have both the images. And I really like the sky. All I want to do is intensify the sky. So I'm just going to go in and say, okay, structure, and I'm just going to add structure in the highlights. Now here, one or two highlights might go with it, but this is just going to make the image more dramatic. So I'll just say, okay, highlights, and immediately you can see, I'll just go a bit farther than I normally would do, before, after. So 10-second quick fix. That's it. I don't need to do anything else on the image because I waited for the light, shot it at the correct exposure, ready, done. Okay, we'll click the trimmers away. And we've got 12 minutes, so we can, let me just show you how, I'll just drop back to tonality just for a minute, just to show you what I would do with tonality too. I might want to make my own sort of 50s look. So I'll open up the image as it is. And I'll go quickly back into tonality. And I'll just say, okay, that's fine. Oh, let's do something even stranger. I'll go first into intensify, and I'll use a filter to give me a more of a 3D, sort of a plastic effect. So I'll say presets, and this time I'm going to say artistic. So I'm using a preset which gives me this sort of more of this sort of plastic effect. Let's but it's become a little bit dark here, so again, just open up the shadow area a little bit more. And I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to save that. And you see, we're working in real time. So in real time, we're not, I'm not using very small files so that you think, okay, yeah, okay, with small files. So you see how quickly we've worked. I'm going to go back again with this image, and I'm going to go into Tonality Pro. And I'm going to make a black and white out of it. So you might say, ask me, well, you could probably have used a filter within Tonality Pro. I could have done. But what I'm actually going to do is, if I catch up on myself, because I've lost myself at the moment, but what I'm actually going to do is look for, let me just see, saturation, and now I can start bringing color back into my image to start forming my own 50s look. So I might want to bring a bit more violets in, a bit more blue in. Let's go up in the red because we don't want to look dead. Okay, and we can see that I've taken a color image, I've done a preset on the color image, gone into tonality, just use a basic black and white, and then just pulled the color back through. So I'm working with saturation just to bring the color back through to make myself my own 50s look. Okay, we're going to cancel that, and we're going to get rid of the image because we're now going to go into an area which is out of my comfort zone. So I never do weddings. I'm an advertising photographer, so we don't have anything to do with weddings or anything like that. I did a workshop last year at Viva Las Vegas, And the guy here took part in the workshop, and we were sitting in the evening, and very nicely he said to me, you know, a lot of people in Vegas, because you've been going a lot, you know, a lot of other photographers. Do you know of a photographer who could shoot some wedding shots for me a little bit cheaper? And I said, yeah, I know of one. He's not bad, and he's quite well known. And he said, who's that? I said, me, you idiot. Of course, I'll shoot your wedding shots, but the only proviso that I've got, the only thing that you're going to have to accept is they're not going to be normal. So we drove out about 40 miles into the desert near Vegas to a location I know, and we started to shoot these sort of images. So it's not every day that your wedding shots have got a crashed fighter in the background. So I'm just going to use this image and open it up, go into Intensify Pro, and what I want to do is actually show you why you shouldn't. Everybody shows you how to use presets, but nobody shows you why you shouldn't use a certain preset, and that's what I hope to do now. So we have before and after, and I'm going to use the navigation tool because I want to zoom in and zoom out so that you can see better. What I love about the navigation tool with MacPhun is it works in perfect real time. So this image is about 60 megs, and you see immediately I go in here, we've got real time. It's working very, very fast. So specifically, I want to show you in this image, let's go back to full image. Somebody would say, yeah, special effect, I'm going to use dramatic on this. So this looks okay, and you say, oh yeah, super effect, looks good. The effect is a bit less here, and it's a lot more here. So if we go to dramatic 1, we're getting a lot more structure in here and everything, but if I zoom in, they look like zombies. If I use dramatic 3, they become zombies. They've got no color in their faces. You should never, ever do this to a woman, ever. So I'm not going to use any of these, dramatic 1 or dramatic 2, because I like the structure, but it's also becoming gray. We've got fantastic sun in Nevada. I don't want this sort of gray effect. So I'm going to go into detail enhancement, into absolute clarity. So now I've got a lot more structure in here. There's a lot more going on. It's become sharper. I don't want this here. I don't want to bring this out here. But again, because of the tools we've got to work with, I can actually go in and say, I want the rest going on here, but I don't want it on my couple. But this time, instead of painting the whole of the background through, I'm going to say invert, and all I need to do then is, sorry, not invert. What I need to do is brush back into here to get the softness back, so into her legs, into her dress, and just his face. The suit can stay. I mean, that can have a lot of contrast. That's okay. But we can immediately see the effect. We've got much more structure in here, but we've actually painted her and her husband's face back, so we're not getting these weird effects going on in the people. And because I used probably, my aperture was around between 12 and 14, because I wanted to get a very big depth of field. They're sharp. I mean, they don't look, it's not that they look unsharper. it's probably not English. I was talking German today, but okay. They're still sharp. This has got more clarity, but they're still sharp. So they're not unsharp. So that's fine. And again, what I want to now do is I want to use the trick we used to do in the analog. So I'm going to go in and say, okay, I'm going to produce another layer, and I'm going to work again with my gradient tool. Just pull that down a bit. Go into adjust. Again, just take the exposure down slightly. And then what we used to do, those of us that worked analog before, or those of us who don't want to do it or use the filters that we had before, glass filters that we can put over our lenses, well, we can create that effect now by adding a sort of magenta tint to our image. So again, if I say apply, we see before and after. Even if you don't like this afterwards, it's no problem, because you can still go in and you can actually change it. So I can say, okay, I want more of an orangey effect, or I want more of a blue effect. I want to take the exposure down, I want to take it up. So I can still work on my image. So we don't have to say, okay, that's the image, ready. I can still work on it. So that's what I did for their wedding, and I've just remembered one image that's very important. If again, if I want to save this, let's say you've got 10 images with the bride and groom and with the family that you've got to work on, and you want to use the same preset every time, I can go in and say create preset, and I can say crazy wedding. And I can then say, okay, add that as a preset. So I can save that as a preset. And if I go into my presets and I look at my custom presets, you see that's the last preset that I've saved, so crazy wedding. So I can actually save these presets to use in future. So I can do a whole complete custom presets that I've made myself. So you don't just have to use the presets that have been made before, you can use your own presets. So I'll just knock that away, because thank you very much for telling me, computer, that it's 9 o'clock. So now I just want to show you one thing before we start with questions and answers, and maybe not, maybe no questions, no answers. The reason why I would buy MacPhun without anything else, I would buy MacPhun, and I'm sure this is going to come in the future, because cameras are only computers now. So God knows how the guys at MacPhun worked out these algorithms, because the first time they gave it to me and I tried this out, I thought, God, this is unbelievable. So this is a shot in Trafalgar Square of some tourists, and I just received the software, and I thought, okay, well, we'll have a look at this. It's no secret that I was a Nick influencer, senior influencer before, and I wanted to see, okay, well, what does it do better than Nick, or what are the differences? So I said, well, let's just use one thing: absolute clarity. And immediately, if you look at the lion, it just becomes metallic. It's unbelievable. So it actually sharpens the image, but what I think is incredible, I mean, if I go into adjust, because again, it's become just a little bit dark. So I'll just open up the shadows slightly. Okay. If you look at, if you look at this image, it's not that it's sharper, but it just becomes more three-dimensional. And what happens normally if you sharpen an image with unsharp masking, whether it be Lightroom, whether it be, it doesn't really matter, Aperture, whichever software, you start getting these light and dark edges, because if you go too far, you'll find that unsharp masking is nothing other than density. So it's just putting a white and dark and black pixel next to each other to give you this effect as if it's sharp, where it's not sharp. But what MacPhun does, I don't know how they do it, it just makes the image sharper. If you look at this area, it's just become very sharp. Here, the bricks, it just gives it that three-dimensional, but not over the top. As I say, because I'm an advertising photographer, I do not want it to go over the top. It must never go over the top. Yeah, thanks for joining us and being with us on this trip.